We're just getting started.
Okay, we'll bring the meeting back into open session. We just completed an executive session for the purpose of discussing strategy with respect to collective bargaining. At this time, we will open the meeting with I believe we're going to have a moment of silence tonight for Arthur Kenny, who passed away this past week, I believe at the age of 97 years old. And Mr. Kenny was the principal of North Reading High School from 1964 to 1981, and the school's athletic field is named after Mr. Kenny. In fact, he was here, I believe,
3 years ago.
2 or 3 years ago to see this new sign that was put up, and I believe Jeff Simons had played a big role in getting that sign built, and he's been a wonderful contributor to the community. And at this time, I ask you to join us for a moment of silence for Mr. Kenny. Thank you very much. Now, if there's anybody who wishes to be heard for public input, that if there are any issues that are not on the agenda tonight, please make yourself be known. Okay. Next, we'll move to our student report, and tonight we have Madison Capizzuto. Madison?
Okay, so for tonight, I have to report a number of items, kind of from all across the board, which is good and bad, depending on how you want to look at it. The first thing that I wish to report is that Student Council had a successful attendance at the MASC, which is the Massachusetts Association of Student Councils, state conference held in Hyannis 2 weeks ago. It ran from Wednesday through Friday. They were actually, the group of students that attended were interviewed today by Mr. Terose of the transcript. They came back with a number of awards, the first being the James Rokas Leadership Award, which is awarded to Danielle Gillis. She's a junior at the high school. She had to submit a 250-word essay nominating herself, explaining some of her own leadership abilities, and pretty much advocating for herself why she thought that she was deserving of the award in this man's honor. One of these awards is given to one student delegate from each of the 4 regions of MASC. So she was awarded the one for NEMASC, which is where North Reading belongs. The council as a whole was awarded a Silver Council of Excellence based off of the book that was submitted. We had first submitted one last year and achieved a bronze standing, so it was a better time around this time, and they're hoping to achieve gold at least by next year. And what that entails is it's basically a breakdown of every event, every rule and regulation that Student Council upholds, membership standards, duties of the 4 officers, that sort of thing. And then there's a rubric that the state board actually goes by to review the whole entire thing, and it fits in like a 2-inch binder. It's really big. It's really cool. Takes a lot of work, so they were very proud of their accomplishments this year. 2 junior students, Jackie Lanzaro and Alex McGeehee, ran a workshop in front of about 45 students titled "I'm Different, Yeah, I'm Different." And it was all about honing in on your own personal leadership qualities and how to better them for yourself, and also when working with other people. They reported great success and made some new friends along the way. Senior captain Keith Linnane was recently named All-Scholastic by the Boston Herald for hockey. The Life Smarts team, captained by senior Ned Madden, came in 3rd. This was last Tuesday, March 18th, at the statewide competition held at the Federal Reserve Bank in Boston. Spring sports commenced last Monday, which was March 17th. Boys lacrosse has had scrimmages this past weekend in Woburn and have 2 more, one coming up tomorrow and another on Wednesday, followed by their first game of the season on Friday. The winter cheering team just closed out their season this past weekend, taking 6th place at New England's. Baseball has scheduled a Cape Cod trip for this coming weekend, and spring track has recently been given a 2-year pass by the MIAA on hosting any state events. just to give them some breathing room because we have hosted the last 2 years in a row, or was it 3? 4?
No, Division
Oh,
4.
I thought you said 4.
No,
Oh,
I think it's 2.
2 years in a row.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So we have a pass. So that's going to be a nice little breather for coaches and parents alike. We had a Paint the School Purple Day, which was for Relay for Life last Friday, where teachers were also invited to participate, not only by wearing purple, but also paying a small fee of I think only about $5. And Mr. Bernard allows them to wear jeans, which everybody really likes. It's very strange for students to see some teachers in jeans, but it's fun for them. And then lastly, in terms of academics, there are practice, advanced placement, chemistry, biology, and calculus exams taking place this Saturday at Linfield High School. And also the advanced placement exam fees, which are $89 per exam, are due to guidance by the end of this week. And then for student work tonight, I brought with me an example of a common assessment, actually, that was just administered in my forensic science class, which is run by Mr. Wall. And what he had us do, I have, if you want to pass them down, should be enough copies. I think there are 7 of them there, so there may be an extra. What he had us do is we basically did some research, both outside of class and also inside of class, off of the video that he had presented to us, based off of sort of the difference between the use of strong arm tactics and the use of different interrogation techniques from country to country, and also how they've sort of evolved over the years, going back from like medieval times all the way up until now, sort of how we are battling the war on terrorism and that sort of thing. So if you'll kind of follow through the packet, he gave us this graphic organizer to use, which you can see I kind of used to take notes while I was doing the research, and then some of the opinion-based questions just kind of came out afterwards. I've included the rubric, which is the school-wide rubric that's new as of last year, I believe, is when we first started implementing it. And then finally, on the last 3 pages is the actual transcript of the final product that if you want to read maybe on your own time or just skim through right now. So that's all.
Great. Any questions for Madison?
Does the baseball team know they're getting a foot of snow on the Cape Wednesday?
Yes, I think they do. You know what? Honestly, those boys, there's really no stopping them. They all just, once.
They're not going to miss a trip to the
No,
Cape, right?
no.
I think they were practicing in the parking lot the other day.
Yeah.
I would believe it. Yep.
Great. Well, thanks, Madison.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Thanks, Madison.
Okay, so next we're going to shift the agenda around because we have some folks here tonight, so we'll want to put this item on the first item on the agenda, and that is a evaluation of the food service program and a presentation by Michael Connolly. Michael?
So this evening, we're going to discuss the evaluation of the food service program, and it was a process that really got underway at the beginning of this school year. It's been really for the last several months, we have really done an analysis of the food service program and the various options that are available. And just a summary, I want to start by just summarizing the 4 options that we looked into. Then I'm going to talk a little bit about the objectives of how we tried to weight each option and the 3 objectives that we were looking to accomplish in the program and in this evaluation. Then I'm going to provide a little bit of a background of the steps that we have taken over the last several months. Then I'm going to just summarize some of the findings of each option that we sort of discovered throughout this process. And then at that point, I'll really kind of turn it up for discussion for the full committee and for the public. So the 4 options currently, first and foremost, one option is so there's no presentation. I'm just speaking to. Yeah, sorry. If you look,
I keep
sorry.
looking over
Yeah,
there.
sorry. That's for later.
I mean, we always look over there.
I know. So is the status quo, and that would be to continue with our current model in which we have a management company, Chartwells, that comes in and oversees the management of the program, and continue with the employees would be continue as employees of the school department. So that's kind of the hybrid model is what we're characterizing that option. The second option would be a fully privatized model, and with the management company. In this option, the food service workers would become employees of the management company, and the company, whether it be Chartwells or another company that provided a proposal, would take over the full operation of the program. The third option we looked into was a self-op program, and what I mean by that is this option would essentially involve us no longer working with a management company, but we would look to go out and hire our own food service director, and the employees would again continue to be employees of the school department. The fourth option that we did research and look into was whether or not it was possible to regionalize our program with a nearby district or community. In this option, we would look for shared services, one of which would be a food service director and other services to deliver the food service program. And particularly, we researched this option with Linfield, with Wilmington, and so forth, and we looked into whether there would be efficiencies of regionalizing the program. So that's the four options that we kind of looked into. And the objectives, really the goal of this evaluation and review was to try to develop, number one, a better understanding of all our available options of running a program. And we looked at this decision and trying to determine which option would provide the best opportunity for, number one, the program to continue to deliver a high quality program, one of which would increase participation and provide a variety of menu offerings for all students at each level. So in terms of high quality and increasing participation, so that's sort of the first objective. The second was which option would provide the best opportunity for the program to improve the financial performance and financial stability and sustainability over both the short and long term. So we wanted to not only focus in the short term, but look to the future, 3, 4, and 5 years out. And which option would ultimately provide the best opportunity for the district to break even and reduce the amount of general fund subsidy that has been required in the past. The third option is really from a management and culture perspective, and we attempted to try to answer which option would provide the most effective management in ensuring the district would remain in full compliance with state and federal guidelines that are becoming more strict and been increasing each year, as well as which option would provide sound leadership and provide the best positive atmosphere and culture for the students, staff, faculty, and parents for the entire community. So this was like kind of the task that we looked into, back in the fall, and just a brief background of some of the steps that we have taken so everyone kind of understands the full process. Really back in November, we sent out a request for proposals to request proposals from companies that would include both a management hybrid option as well as the fully privatized option. Just to make it clear, that process was required this year. So we're required by Chapter 30B state procurement guidelines to go out and solicit proposals at least once every 5 years. So we were actually up, this is the 5th and final year of the current contract. So regardless of this evaluation process that was taking place, we were required to go out and to bid. So the only difference is when we did that, we asked for an alternative proposal that would include the fully privatized option, so we would have the ability to conduct this evaluation. At the same time, we contacted Linfield and other surrounding communities, and we looked to set up a meeting to see if it was possible or discuss the possibility of shared services, including a shared director, and whether or not it was feasible to develop an MOU for such shared services. So we set up that meeting and decided to explore that as an option. We received 4 proposals from prospective companies in late December. The 4 proposals were Chartwells, the current company under contract currently, Whitson's, Aramark, and Cafe Services. As part of the evaluation and the RFP process, we established and created an evaluation committee. This evaluation committee consisted of an administration and a school committee member who began to meet regularly to evaluate and identify the most advantageous proposal. We met several times and reviewed and compared the data. This task certainly involved checking references of each proposal, going back and forth with each company to answer specific questions that we were identified throughout this process. And out of this process in early February, this evaluation committee identified based on the non-pricing as well as the pricing proposals, because just a quick background, when you solicit a RFP process, you're evaluating the non-price, the service, and the experience and the qualifications of each company before you're getting into the revenue and expense and pricing projections. So when we did this, we determined that there were two finalists. Chartwell's was one of them, and Aramark was the other. We met with these companies again and reviewed the information, and we gave each company a chance to kind of firm up their numbers and provide the district with their best and final offer. This was during the February vacation week. From this process, based on the information that each finalist provided, we did meet one last time, and based on the information and looking at both from a price and non-pricing perspective, we did identify at this point in time that Chartwell's was providing the most advantageous proposal. The various pros and cons of each proposal has been discussed and included in some handouts for your review. During the same time period, we were researching and comparing the other options that I spoke of at the beginning, the self-op option as well as the regionalized option. So we reviewed and compared how a self-operation program would compare with the financial proposals and projections we received. This comparison data has also been included for your review. We also met with the Linfield administration and concluded during this time that Linfield administration was not interested in a merger at this time. They didn't feel like it was the right time for them to pursue a merger. And we spoke with other communities, including Wilmington, and concluded that they were also not interested. So at this time, as a result, we concluded that a regionalized model with another district was not a viable option at this time. So that option was sort of eliminated from further consideration. So now it kind of brings us with the options that are on the table this evening. I will just start by saying this has been extremely difficult and challenging process to try to review and go through each option, and there's really no clear advantageous decision. But the summary of the findings, so really the three major options we're looking at this evening would be the fully privatized model, as well as the management or hybrid model, and then comparing that to a self-operation program. So I just want to start by, I just want to kind of go through a few of the highlights of each option that we've discussed. One of which, starting with the fully privatized model, and based on the data that we have received, a fully privatized model would certainly result in considerable cost savings to the district by providing a better opportunity for the district to operate at break even. So based on the proposals that we have received, on average, it was providing an area of cost savings, or essentially a better opportunity for the district to operate at closer to break even. In addition, it would result in some additional savings on the town side in terms of their fixed costs and benefits. The district would need to continue to pay the administrative and management fees for professional services of working with the management company. On average, these fees range up to about $50,000 to $55,000. Under this model, the way we structured the proposal, we wanted to make it clear that current employees would have the first right of all positions, meaning if they had their current position, they would be able to remain within the district. The savings that were identified could certainly be contributed to mainly reductions in labor costs as well as benefit costs, and bringing meal per labor hours closer to industry standards between 16 to 18 meals per labor hour. Then looking at the summary of some highlights of the management hybrid model. The current hybrid model does represent some financial challenges for the district. In a sense, the proposal that we did receive on average represented an annual loss of approximately $70,000. However, it does provide the expertise and oversight needed to navigate the increased guidelines and regulations to ensure the district remains in full compliance. That was something that we discussed as being a significant, important factor. There are financial penalties of not being in compliance with the new federal and state guidelines in terms of nutritional offerings that you're offering to students on a daily basis. So that certainly was a positive aspect of this model. It's extremely important that we meet those guidelines and those regulations. It also ensures the district will continue to employ a food service staff who certainly understand the district and its students best and will help maintain that positive atmosphere and culture for students, for staff, for faculty, and for the community. So that was certainly a positive aspect of this model. The third option, I'm just going to touch upon the self-operation program. Again, it results in some initial savings because you would no longer need to incur the administrative and management fees, that $50,000 to $55,000 of annual fees. However, it would increase some fixed costs and benefit costs on the town side. In some of that initial savings of management and administrative fees is sort of offset by increased costs in food and production costs. In some of the analysis that we did do, we saw that we would see some food and production costs go up by approximately 10%, which could be the result of no longer having the bargaining power or economies of scale benefit that a larger management company has with its suppliers. It's certainly vital that the district remain in compliance with the increasing state and federal guidelines that I just spoke of. If we do not in compliance, we do risk financial penalties. So we certainly felt there was a high level of risk in a sense that we don't know the result of what a search for a new food service director, one that would have the significant level of experience and expertise needed, not only to guide the district in these current market conditions with increased guidelines and regulations. So we felt that this presented a significant risk for the district, as well as the fact that the program will be in a time of transition over the next 2 years as we open the high school next year and in the high school and middle school in fiscal year 16. So we felt the fact that these transitioning will be happening over the next 2 years, it was even more important to have a very experienced, qualified, and quite honestly, a director that was familiar with the district. So given some of these factors, we actually felt like this was not a viable option at this time. It certainly is open for discussion this evening, but the administration and the evaluation committee, as we went through the process, felt that some of the increased hidden costs sort of outweighed the benefit of not having that management and administrative fee, and it was certainly presented a high area of risk. So at this point in time, we see that there are two viable options, one of which would be remain with, both involve remaining with a management company in either the current sort of hybrid model in a sense, or a fully privatized model. And I think one thing that we are confident in this evening, based on the thorough analysis that was done by the evaluation committee, that we do feel in either model, Chartwell's did give the most advantageous proposal, and we did look at the information and go back and forth and check references, and some of the pros and cons highlighted of each proposal is included in the information that was provided. So before I go on, I do kind of want to, I think it's a good point to pause and open it up. There's a lot of information I just went through for either discussion or questions amongst the committee.
Jerry?
Mike, can you tell us the profitability of the food services program over, say, the last 3 to 5 years?
It has. So the program has been operating at a loss. The loss has increased in particular over the last few fiscal years. I think there's a lot involved in what's probably behind and why the loss has been increasing.
But the bottom line is we've been losing money on the food service.
So we have been losing money. The profit and loss statement at the end of fiscal 13, the school year we just finished up in June of 2013, was a little over $118,000. The year before that, in fiscal 12, it was about $89,000. And then the year before that, in fiscal 11, the loss was about $57,000. So
what does it look like for this fiscal year?
So this year, we're projecting a loss between $90,000 and $95,000.
Okay, thank you.
So we were hoping that it would stay around 80 to 83, but we're projecting a little bit higher than that at this point in time.
You said you projected 83?
We were, yeah. The The budget to actual that we put together with Charles at the beginning of the year, we were hoping for an $83,000 loss. It's looking like it's trending. We're going to be more closer to 90 to 95.
So that's, I guess the good news is we're trending the right way. We had 118 last year if we were 90 to 95.
Right.
I mean, this goes back as far as I can remember. I've been on the school committee for
Right.
almost
I
15
don't,
years.
as far as the research I've done, I don't, I mean, I think we've always, we haven't operated in the black or it has profit and already break even in quite some time. And I think really over the last few years, there's a lot of things out of the control of the program that's been happening, with certainly the downturn in the economy over the last few years. You have the state regulations that came in a year ago. Certainly not been easy, and that this is really a trend that's really not just a North Reading issue. It extends across the state, across the Commonwealth. I speak to many other business officials about their food service program and how they're doing and how they're looking to deliver their services, and they're seeing some of the same losses. So it's certainly a challenge, and there's a lot of factors that are going into it.
Any other questions, comments? I think I want to point out, I was the committee, school committee member who sat on the subcommittee, and people out there might say, well, if you're losing all that money, why are you keeping Chartwell's? There's a couple of reasons. Chartwell's actually helped us to kind of design the new kitchen setup.
Right.
And the new cafeteria setup in the new high school and middle school, and we felt that would be advantageous.
Right.
The second thing was, their proposal was more advantageous than the other three, and I think it's clear to Chartwell's that they have to deliver on this proposal.
Right. We made that clear throughout the process, and as the chairman just spoke of, certainly, Chartwell's did provide the most aggressive pricing proposal and financial guarantee to the district under both models. They really feel they laid out a pretty clear action plan of how they think they're going to be able to accomplish some additional revenue, and they feel like they've certainly been instrumental in the transition in the new high school project and middle school project in developing a kitchen that's going to fit in their model. So that was certainly an advantageous part of their proposal. They've made a commitment, I think, to the district by offering a higher financial guarantee, as well as agreeing to reduce their management and administrative fees by about 15% than they have in the years past. So there were a lot of aspects that we certainly we felt was advantageous in their proposal, and we were clear throughout the process that we need to see clear areas of improvement, and this certainly process gave us the opportunity to have those conversations with the Chartwell's management team and to try to go through these areas of some of the things that they mentioned would allow for greater revenue anticipation. I'll highlight a few in the proposal for everyone to hear and understand. Then first and foremost, they felt a change in the environment and an upgrade in the equipment that we'll be receiving, not only with the new building, but it was also as part of their investment plan and their proposal. Should certainly play a vital role in capturing new sales. They felt this is a great opportunity for the district and for the food service program to create new excitement. And certainly the new kitchen at the high school and middle school new building was certainly designed with Chartwell's programs and concepts in mind. The middle school next year, they mentioned, will be moving to the old high school. They feel like this is an opportunity to add additional point of sale stations and try to increase some revenue. The proposal includes refurbished kitchen and serving equipment at the elementary schools, which they felt should allow for some additional options and greater variety of menu offerings. They have not operated a breakfast program in the past, and their proposal did include an introduction to a breakfast program at the secondary level, which they hope to capture not only additional federal and state reimbursement revenue, but additional sales revenue as well. Their proposal included an introduction of a concept called street food promotion, and it involved bringing in a traveling salad bar and a breakfast cart that would be able to move closer to students in the morning and so forth to try to capture sales. and it's involving new and exciting menu concepts really for all schools. So, they recognize that there's certainly a lot of things they can do to improve the program and to bring in some new initiatives. They recognize that the high school and the middle school new building obviously brings an opportunity to the district as well. And I think in looking at the data, and we took a hard look at it, it really did show that from all these angles, from the pricing and these, from a service perspective, that they really were offering the most advantageous proposal. And we tried to make it certainly clear that we would want a clear action plan in place to try to meet the benchmarks that they referenced in their pricing proposal in terms of improved revenue performance.
Any other questions, comments? Want to proceed, or what?
I
Next
don't know,
steps.
does anyone from the community, is it a good time?
If anybody in the audience would like to speak, we give you 10 minutes. If anyone wants to ask any questions or to speak, now's the chance. Okay,
Great.
come on up to the,
So then I-
say whatever you want to say.
then I can get back.
Wow.
First, I'll introduce myself. I'm Pam DeSanto. I've been in the community for 18 years. I have 3 boys. 1 graduated last year, and I've got 2 more that are coming through the system. They're all athletes, 3 sport athletes. My oldest son went to UMass Dartmouth on a scholarship to play football, as well as a lot of these other terrific women. They've lived in this community for many, many years, and they love this town, they love their job, and even some have grandkids that are in the school system now. And there's only a couple that don't live in town. I work with them, and they're great people, and they love their job too, as if they live in this great town. We just want you guys just to really think about our jobs and how much we love our jobs. We love working together. We all work well together. I haven't been here as long as some of the other women. So I think it's a little bit easier for me to get up here, but it is still hard. I've been here for 5 years working in the food service, which I absolutely love it. I started working at the little school, and I was there for a couple years. I loved working with, the women that I worked with, and I needed a change. I needed more hours, and I'm a very busy person, so I needed a busier school. So I'm at the high school now, and I started there in September, and the women that I work with are wonderful. We have our laughs, and, it's very busy there, so, you have to work, and, we still talk and everything. So, all our hope is just to keep the money in this town and for us to work for this town. We pay taxes. We would love to, the women at the high school would love to go to the new high school. We all pay taxes. We love our jobs. Some have been doing this for a lot longer than I have, 15, 20 years. And, they're heartbroken, I mean, even, I've been in this for almost 5 years, and it's, it's very heartbroken, and we just, we still wanna work, for the town. We all live here, why not? It just makes sense. And so when you make your decision, you have to think of all these beautiful women that are sitting right here. They're great. They're great. So, so just think of us when you're making your decision, please. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
So let me just explain, a lot of this is my thinking and not the committee's. And some of it is based on the reporting that Michael brought back to us, and also the fact that I sat on the subcommittee. I'd be lying if I sat here and said the cost savings aren't incredibly compelling to go with a privatized model. I'd also be lying to you if I said I supported a privatized model, because I don't at this time. And I kind of almost feel bad about that because it sounds like I'm an irresponsible representative of the community. But the reason I don't support it at this time, and the reason why I don't think any of the other members support it at this time, we'll see when we take the vote, is I think we need to try a little bit harder at our current model. We need to see if we can get costs better in line. We need to see if we can sell more lunches. We need to get the new cafeteria online at the high school and the middle school to see what that does. We need to get Chartwell's in here with new programs to see if we can, again, sell more lunches, sell breakfast, sell salads, sell whatever we can sell without the government coming here and arresting us because we aren't following the federal and state guidelines.
I'd go to jail for that.
Yes, exactly. Some of us up here, we'd probably all go to jail. We'd like to see more cookies and calzones in the cafeteria if we could, but we don't have a say in that anymore. But, you know, I won't go as far as saying we agonized over this, but it's a really difficult decision because we sit here on one hand saying we should try to save as much money for the town, but then on the other hand, we look and we say we have really 20 loyal employees, many of them who have been here many years. And as Mrs. DeSanto said, most live in this town. And so for me, that was, you know, why I decided at this point that I wouldn't want to make that change. I think, however, and if any other members want to talk on this, I think we'll have a proposal tonight that I think we can continue with the current plan in place, the status quo, but at the same time, we need to see some improvements, and we have to set some guidelines as to, you know, what those numbers look like. So, you know, I can't make a motion, but my recommendation is that we at least stay, when we vote tonight, we stay with the current plan. And we also vote to choose Chartwell's to remain as our food service provider. I believe, Michael, if you can explain, it's a 5-year commitment, but...
So under our town bylaws, essentially, is we can go up to 5 years without having to go through the proposal and procurement process again. But essentially, you know, that contract needs to be renewed at the end of each year. So if you're in the way that the DESC operates at this point, they almost don't allow a multi-year contract with food service. There needs to be a renewal process and for any district that has a management company, and you need to go through that renewal process each year, but you only have to go back out to bid depending on your bylaw, either 3 or 5 years. Ours is 5 years.
So if we decide, say at the end of a year, we decide Chartwell's, we don't think Chartwell's or whoever we picked wasn't doing a job up to our standards, if we could go out to bid again at the end of that year?
We could.
Okay.
We could. Yeah.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Mr. Santos spoke eloquently about the reasons why we should maintain the status quo. And I think she said several times, we're taxpayers, meaning the people that are sitting out there are taxpayers. We have a responsibility to all the taxpayers in North Reading. And there's 15,000 people that live here, and we cannot continue to lose $100,000 a year on this program. So as my responsibility, I see it, is to all the taxpayers. And if there's a more efficient way, a more economical way to run this program, we really have to consider that. We can't just say, well, we have some very dedicated, loyal, longtime employees here. We have to look at the whole town. And as a taxpayer, obviously, you want us to be as efficient as possible. So while I'm inclined to agree with Mr. Webster on which way we're going to go with this, I think it has to be said that we cannot continue to lose this kind of money every year. And we're going to have to take a real hard look at this each year to see what we can do to stop the flow, the loss of revenue every single year in this program.
Anybody else? Karen? No. So I think it's incumbent upon the school district, if we vote to decide to continue with the status quo for at least the next year. It's incumbent upon the school district, it's incumbent upon our employees, and it's incumbent upon Chartwell's to try to figure out how we can minimize the losses that we're seeing currently in the program. And it's moving in the right direction, at least this year. It looks like we should have a $20,000 to $25,000 improvement. I think all of our hopes are that we're not hoping for miracles, but that the new cafeteria and facilities at the high school could really help, because I think it's going to open up a lot more opportunities that we don't have now in terms of what we can sell, what we can bake, what we can cook, and all that kind of stuff. So at this point, I'll entertain a motion for awarding the school food services contract, and also under what model that it will be.
Is that the language you want for the motion?
Whatever, however you want to make the language, and then we can. Yes, I'll entertain whatever motion you want to make.
Mike, what, just make sure we
Right.
encompass everything. What's the
Yes.
motion?
So we
To
definitely.
maintain status quo.
We'd want to vote to award the food service contract to Chartwells under their management-only proposal, because they gave two proposals, management-only and privatized. So if you make it clear,
I'm
that
gonna
it's
make the-
management-only, then that.
I'm going to make the
allows it
motion,
to move
management
forward.
only,
For Chartwell's.
for Chatwell's.
I think you want to put the timeframe, you might want to consider putting the timeframe on that as well, to clear
That
that
we'll
it's,
evaluate it
it's
after the
under
first
the,
year.
you know, the caveat that they reach the benchmarks in the first year and
Okay.
so forth.
Under that caveat.
Yeah.
1 year.
Okay.
Okay.
So I have a motion by Mr. Venezia to award the contract to Chartwell's under the management-only proposal at this time, and also that they meet the benchmarks that they set in the first year. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, questions? No? Cliff?
Aye.
Anybody else? Oh, is that- no questions?
No.
All's in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous.
You're going to love the new school, by the
So
way.
status quo. I know you can't work miracles, but anything you can do to help us save money and to not lose as much money. And as I said, I think a big part of this is Chartwell's and the motivation for Chartwell's to figure out ways to make more money. So hopefully that works, and by the end of next year, we're all set. We don't have to go through this again. Cliff?
Just one, a little, when we first start the new high school, and the first day and the second day and the first week, we need to make that happen as best we can, because you're gonna have kids who are curious, who are gonna come in and try, and we wanna capture them forever.
Yes. That's right.
We will. We try.
We know you do.
As you can see, we have quite the emotional group.
Well, glad you came tonight. It's, wish some of you come more often. We're lonely in here. Nobody comes. Dan comes, Cindy comes.
They get up
Phil
very
comes, and
early.
Patrick comes. Patrick said, that's about it.
Unfortunately, Patrick, I might.
Yeah, I know. They have to be up by like 5:30 or
early.
something, so. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nice job.
Hi, Deb.
Bye,
Bye.
thank you.
Okay. Next, we will move back to our agenda and have another update on the wonderful school project. Kathy?
Mr. Chair, may I request that we go out of order? Mr. Daly is here to make his presentation.
That depends on how long, that depends on how long the presentation is.
You mean Dr. Daly?
I meant Dr. Daly, pardon me.
The last time I called up Mr., I was corrected, not by him, but by, not by you, no, not by. All right, we'll go out of order, and we'll have Dr. Patrick Daly come up, and he is going to talk to us about the bullying prevention intervention plan, and also an update on curriculum, instruction, and assessment.
And if I could just set the stage for the presentation. As you had indicated in your school committee goals action plan for 2013-14, you have several goals areas. One is leadership and governance, and you have a goal that really wants to focus on policy, strategy, and the educational program. And under curriculum, instruction, and assessment strategy, you have a goal that talks about professional development. So Dr. Daly now will make connections to those goals in your action plan for this school year.
And so this time, we should look at the screen?
Yes.
Because that
Will
Dell
be.
thing was really confusing.
I'd appreciate it if you tell us when we should look at
Yeah.
this.
Yeah, next time, Michael, tell us whether, because Jerry and I were
I
just
was setting
staring.
it up for him, I thought you guys were looking at
This is a really boring presentation.
It's the worst presentation I've ever seen.
I was thinking, maybe I should get a PowerPoint.
It's pretty bad. There's nothing
Yeah,
on the
there's
screen.
nothing on the screen, and you and I are staring at it.
excited.
Yeah, it's a long one, but I'll go through it.
We don't give you a break, Patrick, I'm sorry.
I'm just trying to get you out of here early, Patrick.
Are there pictures? Okay.
Oh, wait,
pictures.
no, this whole set doesn't.
Okay, pictures are good.
We're missing our color, but.
Oh, it's supposed to be color?
Secretary?
Green.
Thank you so much. I'm all set. Everyone, thank you so much. Thank you, folks. Welcome. I was asked to provide an overview of academic services and some of the many pieces of this position. I've been here a few times this year to talk on different pieces in detail. This is a little bit more of an overview, but there is a focus tonight definitely on our bullying prevention and intervention plans and our procedures in our town, in our school system. An update on technology. I haven't really focused or highlighted our technology team and a lot of the work they're doing this year, so I'm going to talk about that as well. A little bit of an update on our park assessments, which are really kicking into gear. And finally, I'm going to just bring together, touch upon Common Core implementation, educator evaluation, which I spoke a lot with last time, and professional development, and try to tie those together to paint a picture of all the work that we're doing here in North Reading. So can everyone see the screen? Should I make it a little bigger? Is that?
I can see the screen, I just
Yeah.
can't read the writing.
Yeah, the writing, there are writing on there, but I'll be referring to that. So, a lot of the slides that are included here and in your packet come directly from a presentation that we gave to all staff in January. We have an annual training. We go over our training for our bullying prevention and intervention plan yearly with our new staff, and also with all staff. We've revisited this just to remind everyone of what the responsibilities are and to talk about it, and also to discuss some changes. So I'll be sharing some of those with you tonight. But this plan, if you recall, there are some important dates in our timeline here. So very quickly, 2010 is when an act relative to bullying became the law in the state. Between September and December of 2010, our group PAWS, which I'll speak about in a moment, created the plan with input from all stakeholders. We submitted our plan in December of 2010. We had some wonderful professional development with Dr. Englander, one of the leading researchers in the field from Bridgewater State. And since then, we've been looking at different scenarios, case studies. We've been piloting MARC curriculum that came out of the Massachusetts Aggression Reduction Center from Bridgewater also. There's been a few changes to the laws that were early on with special education, and more recent changes last summer with the definition of bullying in the state. So I just want to speak about PAWS, which again is public awareness and understanding of social education. This is a wonderful group. We've had many educators involved, administrators involved in that group. We've had some school committee members there. We've had at different times members of the police department. We have some wonderful parents who are involved, committee members, folks from the Chamber of Commerce. Our Parks and Recreation has been involved. Our youth service is highly involved, and some great community members, the YMCA. So it's a great group of all stakeholders. This is something that was in place long before I came here. This had started. It became the logical place when the bullying laws came out for us to design our plan. And it's a wonderful group who's really now taken all of this to the next level. So this is a headline that some of you may have seen a couple of weeks ago about a boy reportedly told not to wear a My Little Pony backpack to class. And when you hear these stories, you cringe. These are the stories that we do send out in our PAWS mailing list, and we talk about them at our meetings, because these are the kind of situations where this story, a young child was being teased at school for wearing a backpack to class, and the school reacted by saying, you know what, you're getting teased, you probably shouldn't wear that. So these are the situations that we want to work on, and I'm going to circle back to this towards the end. But what this group is really about is about culture. It's about creating a culture where we are accepting. And I think that's really very important. And that's really what PAWS was all about. And I think all of the legislation that's come out has been good. It's been in its place. But I think when we talk about the culture that we're trying to create in our schools and improve in our schools, we're doing a great job. But that is our real focus area. So I will circle back to that as well. But here are some of the things that the PAWS group is doing. We have worked on updating our bullying prevention and intervention plan. We communicate our updates to staff. We've evaluated, adopted, and implemented the curriculum at different levels. At the elementary level, we're trying out these small units and working them into our existing open circle lessons. At the middle school, it's really being delivered through the health classes. I was able to observe a great lesson the other day with Mr. Archambault's class, where they were directly, had the whole class engaged in a great scenario. And at the high school, again, through our health classes, it's a great place, and they really get into cyberbullying at the upper levels as well. And we look to improve the climate in all of our schools. We've also talked about improving the procedures for investigating and responding to bullying and cyberbullying complaints. So things, PAWS may raise ideas that we then bring back to the administrative council. Sometimes the administrative council raises an idea, and we'll always shoot it off PAWS. PAWS is always, that group is great to give us advice back to, even to wordsmith some of the forms to make sure that we're staying true to our mission and our vision, which is wonderful. Our collaboration with our other agencies, and it's really a great way to improve communication with parents of students who are both aggressors and targets to provide support. So those are our goals. This is one of the outputs that we've created. I have to credit Mr. LaPrette, the assistant principal of the high school, took our very large bullying plan and created the North Reading High School brochure. And we love that. And then as a group, PAWS adapted those. So we have 3 versions that are on our website. One for the elementary school that's in a real kid-friendly language, one for the middle school, one for the high school. And this kind of a brochure, I've used it myself when a parent has questions. I'm not printing out a 50-page document to go through with them. I take the brochure, we sit down, it very clearly spells out what to expect, what the school will do, how we will respond, what they should understand. And it really takes our action plan and lays it out. So this is one of the great outputs of this group. So some important updates. Very recently, we made a lot of updates to our plan over the summer of 2013 to respond to some of the changes to the legislation. This fall, we sort of an internal audit. It's been 3 years, going on 4 years since we've adopted this plan. And so we looked at our investigation forms and we made some changes to those forms. We have talked about how we're going to communicate internally. It should be very clear that myself as the Title IX person, that the principals, just making sure the communication is there for a number of incidents in the building, whether bullying was substantiated in the investigation and also just the number of reports. So we've really increased that communication and collection. In January, we did our update for everyone, and we've talked about some of the changes. And then we're also looking at, in addition to just the teachers who were trained in January, we need to train everyone, bus drivers, custodians, food cafeteria workers. And so we're developing an online module similar to what they have in the town for the ethics training. So I've done a little research and figured out a great way to deliver that in an online module. And I'm excited about that because we can do that with new hires or someone that comes in mid-year. It's a great way to let people do it at their own pace and keep track of that. So we're going to explore that as well. So just a quick overview and refresh everyone's memory. Employees are going to read and understand the plan, understand these updated definitions, and reporting any conduct. So this is our message you'll see throughout. It's all about making sure we're communicating and reporting. The changes that this law brought into effect was that the law extends to the bus stops, on the school buses, in cafeteria lines, and through the use of technology or electronic devices that are not owned, leased, or used by a school district if the act creates a hostile environment at the school. So basically, things that happen at home, over the weekend, online, if there is an effect on the school day, which very often Facebook and cyberbullying and text messaging can create these disturbances at school. And so this is a change from the way many of us thought about bullying many years ago. For teachers, it's all about professional development, making sure they're able to recognize signs of bullying and retaliation, the anti-bullying curriculum, and then we always talk about sharing positive news as well as negative news, trying to create that culture of trust and reporting and sharing from teachers and homes and with students as well. For administration, we really want to address topics at faculty meetings with students and parents. We've designed, part of the PAWS group is designed case studies and scenarios. So I'm a paraprofessional, I'm on recess duty, I see this, what do I do? And so we've been doing those and working those into our faculty meetings. We've also been working those kind of scenarios at the administrative table where a principal every other a meeting that we have, brings forward a scenario and we discuss it as a roundtable, as a tabletop exercise. And it's been great. So the administration also revisiting the plan and talking about it frequently. So we have this slogan that we're using, when in doubt, fill it out. The teachers, anyone, if they see something that's suspect, they should definitely report that. And the reason why we do that, the reason why we want to make sure we're reporting is about making connections. Something might happen in one classroom and a teacher takes care of it and feels that it's settled. Well, if the same thing might have happened down the hall, and then that third thing that blows up, and that's, if it's only that third thing that it gets the assistant principal or the principal's attention, they didn't have the knowledge of those other events that were handled locally. So it's why we should just report and communicate so that, someone with the big picture view at the administrative level can connect the dots. So that's very important. So if you were to look at our plan, our incident reporting form did not change very much. We still have our incident reporting form, and we have the ability for this report to be given orally and filled out by an administrator, or it can be filled out by a student, a parent, a teacher, an administrator. We also have the ability to report anonymously. I don't know if you recall, but the last time I reported last year was actually the day we received our first and only anonymous report. So we have not received any since that time. This form did not see any changes, but one thing that we did change this year, our incident reporting form, this is used, our investigation form that we use internally. We added this section here about making a determination. So we looked at the Department of Education's revised plans, and we really liked how this really makes a decision there. Was there a finding of bullying or retaliation, yes or no? What were and what was the action that was taken? So it really kind of spells it out clearly for the administrator who's making the determination. We made a few slight changes here, but I just want to keep this in. This is one of my favorite parts of our plan, is that we also have a follow-up form, because it's so important that we follow up with both the target and the alleged aggressor within a reasonable amount of time after the initial investigation. We don't assume that a matter is resolved just because we made a determination and just because there was some kind of action taken. And we are very careful to follow up with both the target and the aggressor, because we care about all the students, obviously, and very often there can be retaliation that can go back and forth. The bully can become the target can become the bully. Things can go back and forth. We want to check in with both and make sure that everyone is well cared for. So this is a part that's still a part of our program that we use very often. This is just a quick little snip of our internal form that we now are reporting monthly, and we are checking in on the name of the school, how many reports were made, how many were substantiated. And this is a way for us to internally check to make sure that if something is substantiated, that's been communicated to me, so that if there's ever a question, it's not just that the principals are dealing with this in a vacuum, that it's part of our larger system and we're able to address it and deal with it. This just speaks to what I've kind of surmised here about reporting and why it's so important. And this is the example that we gave when we gave the presentation about things happening in isolation. It happens at 3 different places before the principal makes that connection. We gave several scenarios, and I'm not going to go through them all now, but this first one is about a student on the autism spectrum who wears the same clothing all the time, and the children are teasing him. So we talk about this a little bit, but we use this scenario to introduce the idea that this is the first change to the law that talks how students with disabilities on the autism spectrum, when the disability affects social skills development and when the disability may result in a vulnerability to bullying, that the department recommends that IEP teams carefully consider supports needed to build each student's social skills and proficiencies to avoid and respond to bullying, harassment, and teasing. A lot of recent presentations have talked about doing this for more than just students with autism spectrum disorder. We talk about extending this to all students with IEPs, as they may be vulnerable for teasing. So to consider, that's something we're considering widely about how to work all of that language into our IEP for the student to make sure we're helping them with those situations. The second scenario, we talked about a student who was born male who now identifies herself as a female, and we talked about a scenario with that student. And the reason we wanted to do that was to bring in some other new ideas. This was to reflect on an act relative to gender, which says that no person shall be excluded from or discriminated against in admission to a public school of any town or in obtaining advantages, privileges, and courses of study in such public school because of race, color, sex, gender identity, religion, national origin, or sexual orientation. So gender identity added there too. And to really focus on points like this, that LGBT youth with highly rejecting parents are more than 8 times as likely to report suicide attempts and nearly 6 times as likely to report high levels of depression. Given these findings, it's likely that LGBT students with rejecting parents will respond differently from LGBT students with accepting parents when they learn that their parents will be notified that they are targets of bullying related to sexual orientation or gender identity and expression. Pretty powerful. And it also, the idea for administrators or for anyone making a call home, there's actually another recent story in the news about this, where you're very careful not to out a student. You know, the student may be out at school and not out at home. So something very important that the law considered that we wanted to make sure was passed on to all in our district as well. This third scenario is just about a principal, and some of these scenarios are really set up to get us talking. This is one where the principal is being teased and he says, you know, what's the matter? Didn't your parents give you the right genes? So we know no one in North Reading would ever actually say that to their students. However, this gets us to think about one of the major changes to the law this summer was that the definition of perpetrator also now includes a member of school staff, including but not limited to an educator, administrator, school nurse, cafeteria worker, custodian, bus driver, athletic coach, advisor to an extracurricular activity, or paraprofessional. So it made the plan applicable to school staff, including but not limited to the individuals listed above. So just to be clear with everyone that this does not say that teachers against teachers or administrators, or teacher to administrator or administrator to teacher, or student to teacher or student to administrator. This is strictly about those named adults could be the aggressor against the student. So a student, this is about student protection at this time. So there's a lot to think about, a lot to sink in, but I think that we're all aware of situations that are few and far between where a coach or someone could be a bully, and that's now giving the students the ability to report that to the proper administrators. Just to circle back to our story, this is what happened with the My Little Pony story. There was quite a campaign. It says Rainbow Dash is awesome, Grayson is awesome, that's the student, bullying is not awesome. And there was a lot of support. The school district did come back and realize something that we talked a lot about at PAWS, which is, do we, you know, as much as we do want to support students through their IEP and try to teach them the social skills not to get teased, we want to build that culture of acceptance. And this student is allowed to wear his backpack. The principal and the superintendent met on this. And the student should be able to wear what he wants to wear. And I don't know if you can see this picture. This is another story from the fall that we shared quite a bit. This was from Bridgewater. There was a young boy who had some disabilities, and he always wore a hat and a fedora and a shirt and tie to school every day. And he was the water boy for the football team in a neighboring town, and was getting teased a lot at school and bullied and picked on because he wore the hat and wore the shirt. So this picture shows what happened is when the kids on his team heard about this, they all wore fedoras and shirts and ties to school. And it just showed that idea that instead of trying to make him like us, we're all going to embrace and accept who he is as an individual. And I really think this epitomizes what we're trying to work toward in our town, and to create this culture of acceptance in our schools. It's prevalent in our curriculum. It's prevalent in a lot of the work that we do during our No Name Calling Week, and all of the work that we do at all of our schools to really establish a culture of acceptance for all students. I just put a couple of articles there where I pull that from. So I have some other updates. Should I continue, or do we want to talk about the bullying?
Before we move on, I want to see if there's any
Sure.
questions on the bullying.
Absolutely.
I have a question or two.
Sure.
And then, how do you judge whether this program is a success both at our schools, and I guess we really can't judge at the state level, and we're required to report annually to the state bullying incidents, and what are we seeing in terms of the numbers we're reporting, or is that not public information?
Should be public information.
Right.
Yeah, as far as the numbers that we're seeing in our district, are you asking whether it's increased or decreased because of awareness, or?
I guess, are we seeing more incidents, less incidents, no incidents?
It's a very low number. When you do have an incident, it's huge. It's all consuming. It often involves much of the assistant principal's time, very often my time, the superintendent's time, to make sure that we have done a thorough investigation and that we've covered all aspects of this, and these investigations go on. I would say there's probably more reporting. There is more reporting because we have a reporting system where we're actually naming something as bullying. Very often there are several reports a month with one or none substantiated. So the principals it is not the case that everything that's reported as bullying ends up being substantiated.
So what gets reported to the state? Just what's substantiated?
Yeah.
Okay.
And what ends up being is I would say it's really 0 to 1 per month per school. And that's really about the average. I was going back and looking at what we've been collecting for the last few months. It's not a tremendous amount of substantiated cases.
Mr. Webster?
And
If I
yes,
could just
absolutely.
state that last year was the first year that the Department of Ed in its reporting of discipline, because they collect information annually on reports of discipline behavior, was the first time that they actually teased out bullying to be separate from any other incidents. So last year was the baseline.
Okay.
And unless we're told it's going to change, I'm anticipating that they'll continue to build upon that baseline from last year.
Okay.
Yes.
Quick question, on page 6, Patrick, on the determination form.
Mhm.
I notice under action taken, you have different options, and they're all punitive, except for the last one, which is education.
Mhm.
I just represented a middle school student from Woburn, and it struck me that the first instinct or the first impulse of the vice principal was to suspend the kid for 2 days.
Mhm.
There was no remedial action taken, there was no education involved, it was just suspended for 2 days, go home.
Mhm.
And and I'm just trying to read between the lines here is, that's the last option that you list.
Sure.
I'm sure it's not the last option you consider, but it
Mhm.
just seems to me that instead of punitive disciplinary action, sometimes it would warrant something that would help the student understand, what he did wrong or she did wrong and what you can do to help
Mhm.
fix that.
I love that suggestion. Some of the things we did to this form from the state form that we adapted from added words like alleged to it, and I think that kind of thinking goes with the same way when we set up our rubrics and we start with excellent, and then I really like that. That's a suggestion I'll bring forward. I think starting with education, some of the positive behavioral responses first, even just in a visual, like you
Right.
say.
Is that
Um,
mindset, though, to immediately discipline a student, or is it to try to deal with the issue?
No, it's to deal with the issue, to get to the bottom of the issue, and then if there is disciplinary, again, this form proceeds from if there is a finding, then you would have the discipline.
Okay.
And so that's where that comes from. So very often there is either not a finding or there's some other settlement first. But this is if it is determined to be disciplined, then it's clear about what the discipline is.
All right.
And very often it'll be multiple checks there. I mean, education I think would be checked just about every time. There's going to be time where we're going to sit and talk about, why behavior was improper and why it should, not continue.
Anything else?
I could talk about this forever.
Please don't. Please, you got
No
it.
comments, no questions?
You could write
No,
a
I'm
thesis.
I'm really thrilled that, so first of all, this is a huge amount of work and the district should be applauded for getting it done quickly when it was brought down into forming a community-based organization, literally within a school district, to actually get this done. That's a pretty amazing achievement compared to other school districts, and so I think that should be recognized. I personally don't think this law is effective, and so, it's just that's what my evaluation said from my dissertation. But that being said, the cultural sort of side effect of this work might actually be worth it, because you're creating and instilling a culture that is, again, accepting, supporting students and their needs, instead of focusing on what you said, Jerry, about a disciplinary approach. There are many, many different ways you can address behavior. And it may not be bullying, it could be harassment, because an incident is a harassment, it's not bullying until it's multiple incidents, academically. I think the issue around the new legislation for staff is the most concerning to me, just because, when I think about our harassment policy and what we have there, to me it sounds that's sufficient. If a staff member is bullying a student, there are other things that our policy says that, would, for example, the potentially have that person up for termination if they have harassed a student or there's something going on there. So to me, I kind of feel like we need to look at that from a policy standpoint. I know that we have. I know we've changed the bullying policy, if I remember correctly.
To include
To
staff
include it,
and, right.
but I don't know that we've looked through it through the lens of our harassment policy. So I just
I
wanted to
understand.
throw that out there.
I think this whole thing too could be a really sensitive area in the terms of athletics and coaches.
Right,
Yes,
that's really
That,
difficult.
where do you cross the line?
Right, what
I mean,
crosses the
where's
line?
that line set? Because they're in a different environment, and they've always been in a different environment, and that certainly doesn't give them carte blanche to say or do things that
Right.
they shouldn't, but it is something that I can see some of those incidences coming up at some point.
Well, because it's interesting, because some teams have some types of coaches and other teams have other types of coaches, and some kids are used to playing for one kind of coach and some kids are used to play,
Well-
so it is really a fine line.
Yeah, you have the situation right now with the Boston University women's
Oh, right,
basketball
exactly.
coach, and it's a huge
Yeah.
hoo-ha-ha there.
Absolutely.
So I'm wondering what the best way to think about that is. Is it that the policy subcommittee looks at that? But no district has figured this out.
We
I
looked at
just
what we
know.
already have in the,
Right, because for me,
Policies.
if a staff member is bullying a student, that is grounds for potentially a crime to have been committed. I mean, I don't know.
it sounds like more than bullying to me.
It sounds like, grounds for something very serious, for
Yeah.
repercussions. So I just don't know that
I
we
think
know
it's
the
something we
answer
should
to that.
review.
Yeah.
Review what we have in terms of other policies related to staff
Potentially.
harassing students, et cetera.
Potentially, yes.
I will say we've had 0 reports of that
That's good.
incident. However, I agree, I think it is something to look at. What, if that were to happen, what are the next steps? I think that's something to be reviewed. So, any other questions on that? Great, so I just want to talk a little bit about technology team, and really just give some credit to our wonderful team that we have here. It's growing. As you know, part of our vision for NRPS 2016 has been to add technicians, digital learning specialists. Our network administrator, Nicholas Langford, often so much behind the scenes, unsung hero, doing so much for us. Our technicians, we have Randy Pyrus and Caleb Abebe, who's here for, he's in now for a long-term sub position. Our data specialist is Nan Cook. Our digital learning specialist, Joanne Coughlin and Helen Kelly. Our secretary, academic services, Thea Peach, who does so much more than secretarial. She is a database whiz and does so many things for us and manages all of our tech tickets. And I want to include also our library, media and technology paraprofessionals at the elementary schools, the middle school, are very much involved with our tech team. Some of them sit on our tech committee that writes the tech plan. Our Kim Smith, our 912 library media specialist, has done so much with our team, and I'll talk about that a little bit more. Our computers teachers at the high school and middle school, and our robotics teachers at the middle school are very much involved. And also we have a district data person, Nancy Anzoni, who still does a lot of work with us with our submissions. I just wanted to talk a little bit about some of the things that are happening this year, and a lot of these things happened just today, because I spent a lot of time with these guys today, just to talk about the amount of work on our network administrator with the building project this year. I mean, Nicholas and I have sat through so many meetings about wireless and new computers and networking. Just so much work above and beyond. It's just great that I wanted to take a moment to thank him. With the park assessments, I'm going to talk about this more in a moment, but there's so much work done behind the scenes to figure out how we're going to communicate back and forth with Pearson on the computer, how we're going to set up the Chromebooks, how we're going to set up the desktops, how we're going to do this at multiple schools. There's just been such a tremendous amount of work that we've been working on, and Nicholas has been highly involved. The technicians very much involved in this for setting up the iPads, the Chromebooks, and also lots of meetings with the building project. Our data specialist worked tirelessly with our food service team to really bring in the NutriKids system to allow parents to pay online. There's just a lot of work behind the scenes. So much we've talked about before that's happening in terms of data collection, whether it's for student assessments or student information, and also for our submissions to the state. There's a whole piece of data entry for Park. What I keep telling to people is think about everything for MCAS that you can write on a piece of paper You now have to enter behind the scenes, and you know, every teacher who's proctoring, you need to enter all those teachers and all their information and all their classrooms and all their assignments. There's a lot of that Nan has been helping with the park implementation. And also, Nan, myself, Sean Clean, Chris Smalley, and Kathy O'Connell before us have taken an advanced Excel course on the VARD to really look at, that's the visual analytic research tool, and being able to use Excel in our district, because the next steps for a lot of our teachers, we have all this data that we're collecting. How do we go visual with it, and what do we do? So there's been a lot of things that Nan's been working on and leading the charge with there. Our digital learning specialists have been doing a tremendous amount of digital learning. They've taken their goals directly from NRPS 2016. They have aligned those goals, so they're working on establishing what are those benchmarks for students at grades 4, grades 8, grades 12. And those grades are based on the state guidelines. What do we want students to know and be able to do in terms of technology by those levels? The state guidelines are in severe need of updating. I think it still talks about floppy disks and things like that. So at the same time, it's taking those, updating them, but bringing it to our students, getting our teachers to work with new technologies such as iPads, and developing this K-2 research project, which has been wonderful. So I'll circle back to that as well. Park, as I mentioned before, just to let you know, we're doing our updates. We did our first practice test today, and we learned a lot of things. We're actually going to come back tomorrow and try again with a few things, because just browser updates alone are going to be quite interesting with this new system. The browser wars that are going on, you have to have a certain version of everything, and even if you update to the newest version, now it's not compatible anymore. It's quite something that we have to get a handle on. But we're doing a practice test on the 28th as well. These are about a half hour in length, and it's really to introduce the students to the testing environment, because students have never seen the forward button, the back button, the tools that they can use. They've never seen those tools. They've seen tools like them, a back forward button in a browser window, but it looks different in Park. So this is an opportunity for students to do that, so they're more comfortable when they're doing their practice assessments. We are using the 9th and the 10th at the Little School in April, and the 1st and the 2nd at the Batchelder in April for the actual Park pilot assessment. There is also a test in the Batchelder School later in the spring for the end-of-year assessment.
So
Absolutely.
on those tests, we're all set with the technology. We have enough technology in each of those buildings, so every student will be able to take the test when they need to take the test on it.
Absolutely. So what we're doing in terms of technology for the test, we could arrange it so that every student uses the computer lab. One thing that I've really pushed for is I want to use the Chromebooks, because if this ever does expand and we need to buy more devices, I want to know that it's going to work on those other devices. And so we have students using the Chromebooks, and so at each school there's one class using Chromebooks, one class using the computer labs. I've talked to colleagues in other districts, and a lot of them are using their best system for the pilot, but what that doesn't allow you to do then, if you have to scale, there's no way every 5th grade class in the district could use that school computer lab. There's not enough time to schedule it that way. So I really want to test that. We decided not to test on the iPads at this time, because that would have required a separate purchase of additional keyboards due to some issues with the on-screen keyboard not being accepted, and we didn't incur that cost at this time. A lot of districts were out buying $70 Bluetooth keyboards. We decided to go with the Chromebooks, and we're using the middle school Chromebooks at these schools on these days, so we kind of borrowed them for those days and used those. So this, part of the practice for the students using the Chromebook, a lot of them have never used a laptop with a mouse. It's just a slightly different feel to it, so that's
Right.
part of what we're allowing them to practice with.
So I'm not sure what next year calls for. I don't know if it's going to be an option to give Park or MCAS or whatever.
Yep.
But say, hypothetically, next year the state says everybody's taking Park. Do we have enough technology to deal with that situation? Where everybody would take the test simultaneously, as I'm sure they're supposed to. You don't want some kids taking it on one day and kids taking it 3 days later, because then these kids tell these kids what's on the test. So.
Right. No, there's regulations about that. We have, as I think I mentioned before, we had to fill out our level of alarm. And I always said our level of alarm is a 9 or a 10 as far as this, because to do this well and to do this properly and to do this without my tech team running around with bins of Chromebooks like
Right.
they're doing today, we need to purchase a lot more devices.
That's what I thought.
And you can't just bring student devices in because they have to meet all these criteria. So we really need to be looking at more devices to meet this mandate. Could we make it happen if we had to with what we have? Probably. We'd have to be pretty creative and with the scheduling and with the borrowing of devices and borrowing high school devices down to the elementary for a day and bringing them back. We can make it happen if we have to, because our team is really efficient and they can move things around. But like I said, we spent the day today with bins of Chromebooks going from school to school. So that's
Which
really
isn't
what
the
we're
way it
talking
should
about.
happen. I guess
It's not the
that's-
way it should be.
And
That's
we,
right.
and we know there's not money there to purchase all the devices that we would need to
No.
do it properly.
And you've got to have the right version of the
Right.
right browser.
Yep.
And you gotta have the
Absolutely.
right keyboard, and, you know, where do these people come up with stuff like that? It's absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah. It-
Absolutely, positively ridiculous. You ought to be able to use it on any platform at all.
Yeah, makes sense to me. But at least so
Crazy.
the test today was with students, the initial test, to start to get them familiar with
It
it?
is, and we're gonna do that again tomorrow at the Batchelder and at the Little on Thursday. So that's really for the students to do that. And you know, in all honesty, we have to come back tomorrow because when we went to do it today, this was our trial. And we built this in, but it wasn't, we were met with unexpected, no, it wasn't a real test, obviously, but we were met with unexpected. And it is going to be interesting just to see. The tutorial, for example, is not differentiated for 3rd grade, 5th grade, high school. So I'm going to guide them very carefully through it. I'm going to assure the students this is just for fun. This is, but we'll go very slowly through how to use the different tools. That said, even the teachers and administrators that saw it today, there are some neat pieces to it. Being able to do some of these things on the computer, allowing the student to express their thinking in different ways. So I am, as silly as this might sound, I am a little bit excited about seeing what this looks like because we've been hearing about it for so long. But there is quite a bit of preparation for this. Just to speak about the training and professional development that's coming up, grades K to 2, with our digital learning specialists and also our library media specialists at the high school have been developing a research project for K to 2, where we've looked at the Common Core standards that deal with research and also that deal with the integration of digital sources. So they're looking at, for kindergarten and 1st grade, how to use a research database. So we've found some wonderful research databases that actually the students can click. There's lots of pictures. It can actually read back to the students. So students are able to conduct research. A lot of these projects are already going on in our classrooms, and they're doing a fantastic job. But what we're creating now is a rubric for these assessments. So not only, it goes all the way from the research stage all the way up to the reporting stage and the production stage. So after the students have compiled their report, they're able to produce their writing sometimes in a written report, sometimes in something like a podcast, or some exciting projects. So it's a great way for us to incorporate those standards. There's a lot of work going on with our mathematics content, and we've brought a speaker in that's one of the leading experts in mathematics in our state, and actually he's worked a lot with the Common Core mathematics, so he's been working with our 3 to 5 teachers. We've been doing quite a bit of work with all of our alignment of Common Core and working on district-determined measures, which really are our common assessments in all grade levels and areas that we're going to use also as a measure of student growth. And I spoke a lot of that last time. Our curriculum leadership, which there are 30 leaders, which is in all subject areas plus the special education leaders. I meet with them regularly and we talk about our curriculum and course updates. There's a lot of changes that are coming to some of our courses. There is so much work being done about our development and revision of our common assessments. And I've worked very closely with them to develop actions, timelines, and persons responsible for this huge task of not only developing and revising these common assessments, but thinking about how they're going to make sure that they're used by everyone in their department, and eventually how those assessments are going to be used to measure growth. So I want to thank those curriculum leaders for doing such a fantastic job of getting us to where we need to be, which is, as I mentioned before, our district-determined measures. MCAS needs to be used in certain areas, but we're also going to have district-determined measures for all subject areas for all grades. And what that means is by June 1st, we need to submit our plan of what the assessments are, who developed them, what grades it covers, and for subject areas. So this is a requirement of the Department of Education. that we're going to be submitting, and our teachers have been working really, really hard, and I'm very proud to be sharing a lot of what we're doing through our job-like groups and also through different forums, because I think we really are leading the way in so many of our areas. We're doing a great job. Some of the challenging areas are our nurses and counselors. You can imagine trying to figure out how you're going to measure student growth when you're a nurse. It's a challenge. But our nurses have great ideas, but we're also going to be developing some forums. I'm working with a group of about 25 to 30 districts in the area who are going to come together and really look at specifically nurses and counselors as areas that really need some specific professional development around these measures. Next steps, as I mentioned before last time, of our 5-step evaluation cycle. Teachers, we've just been through our formative assessment process for teachers on the 1-year plans. We're coming now into the end of their cycle, the 1-year plan summative evaluation, and also the formative assessment and evaluation for folks on a 2-year plan. So the last few months of school are going to be filled with a lot of educator evaluation, formative assessments, and summative assessments. And as I mentioned, this is all coming in June with the summatives, the formative evaluations, and submitting DDMs to the educators. So quite a bit on the docket, plus some other things going on in May and June in this middle school, high school situation. As I mentioned, the ratings for all educators, the DDMs would impact a 3-year analysis of student trends of growth, would determine low, moderate, or high growth. That is not going to be part of the equation of 2016-17. But what is in play for this year is these teachers on 1-year plans will be given a rating of exemplary, proficient, needs improvement, or unsatisfactory. I can report, I was part of a panel. I went to the Department of Ed in Malden for staff and student feedback. This is the next piece that's coming along. I'm happy to report that the department's approach to this is very, very much formative. That what is going to come out, hopefully they're saying in June, July this year, it's going to put a lot back on the districts, but it is going to be formative in that information collected from student surveys would be used for the teacher to inform her self-assessment and her goal-setting process. It's not going to be reported directly to the state or anything like that. It's really meant to be a formative process. But this in and of itself is going to be something we're going to spend a lot of time at the district level, because you can imagine the questions that'll come up. So if a student has 8 teachers and there's a 20-question survey, when are they filling this out? How many teachers are they filling it out for? Lots of questions for us to consider as we move to work this language into the regulations. So this is on the horizon, but I'm happy to report that at least the direction it's going is positive. So I'll finish with this, that the part of what the commissioner has come out with the June submission, we are going to use that plan as a time to lay out the fact that we are working very hard. We have our district determined measures in just about all of our areas. I think we're in very, very good shape. But at the same time, this is an opportunity for us to say, listen, we're doing the best we can. We have a plan. We need a little bit more time for some of these things to come in place. So we will identify DDMs where they are, but we'll talk about a plan and a timeline to get them in those other areas that I do feel and we all feel are more difficult and more challenging. We have worked with our collective bargaining group that involves teachers and union members and administrators. It's a great process, and we've really identified that as our labor management working group. And our collective bargaining process is we've scheduled meetings all the way through, because there's just so many things that keep coming up. But we really have a good plan here to put this through. And it seems to be letting up a little bit. This most recent release says, I understand that you will not have everything ready for June, which is very welcome news, because we've worked very, very hard. I've gone back with our curriculum leaders. Even though everyone's going to have 2 DDMs, we're saying start with 1 and do that really well. Let's go through each component. We've come up with worksheets to we've sat around the table and workshopped, these measures. Does it meet the requirements? Does it meet our needs? Because we want them to be meaningful and we want to do them well, as opposed to it just becoming a compliance activity. So finally, what lies ahead? Lots of professional development this summer, curriculum work in math. I dare say science, as our new standards are on the horizon in the next few years. ELA as well, much to be done there with writing rubrics. Our common assessment work with rubrics and scoring. We do have this data training piece for all educators. As I mentioned earlier, there's quite a bit to learn about how to measure growth and how to use that data to inform instruction in our classroom. And a tremendous amount this summer, and most of what we're going to focus on this summer and even at the beginning of next school year, about all of our wonderful new school technologies. The MediaCast system, which is going to allow teachers to broadcast and stream internet videos and basically a database of videos into their classroom at any time, and also to different places in the school. How to use our new interactive boards, the wireless, how to mirror your devices onto those boards, Windows 8.1, which will be a learning curve for our educators, using Chromebooks, using iPads. So we're going to be running little mini training. I've told my tech team it's sort of all hands on deck over the late summer, and especially when we're back to school, because we're just going to run little training sessions for all this new activity. So with all the new good comes a lot of training and learning that lies ahead. Any questions?
Any questions or comments for Patrick?
When do you sleep?
We're all working very hard. It's a great, can't do it without my team. It's a lot to do, so it's
I'll
great.
just say Windows 8.1 is no picnic.
Yeah,
I mean, it took me about 3 months to
yeah,
finally. Yeah, it's very not intuitive.
yeah.
That's why I'm not buying a new computer.
It's really designed for touch. I bought a laptop that's also a touch
Yeah.
screen, and it's really designed for that. So it made it easier for me. But
Yep.
if you don't have the touch screen, it's harder to.
It's true. And so you
Learn.
do need to think in terms of, if you had it on your phone, it is more intuitive,
Right,
because you're
but if-
thinking of scrolling here and there. Some of the improvements with 8.1, you're able to more easily set it up to look like something you're used
7,
to in
right.
XP or Windows
Yeah.
7. So that's really what we're excited about there. But yeah, there will be a learning curve, and that's why my goal is to get devices into hands of teachers actually at the beginning of the summer, so they can play on their own a little bit as well. But we definitely will have lots of training just about that to get people used to it. So
Great. Thanks, Patrick.
thank you.
Brad.
Thank you.
See you Wednesday. Okay. Okay, next we're going to move back to continued business and get an update on the school project. Kathy?
Thank you. The last secondary school building committee meeting was held on Tuesday, March 11th, but I was most excited about Tuesday, March 18th, and at 3:30 p.m., our OPM, Jeff Wetton, conducted a tour for our elementary and middle school administrators. Mr. Carl Nelson came back for this tour, Dr. David Troughton came back, Mr. Bowers, Mr. Venezia, and Mr. Webster attended, as well as former school committee member Maureen Vaca. And it was truly an awesome afternoon. Our elementary principals had not yet seen the inside of the construction project, and I think it's an understatement to say that everyone walked away amazed and in awe. I don't know if you have any other comments to add, but it was a wonderful tour, and we really enjoyed seeing the progress that's made day to day now, because things are happening so rapidly.
I just like seeing David Troughton's face as we as we entered each part of the building, and he would just look up, and you could tell he was in utter amazement at what the school has become, at where the project is.
It's true.
Big smile on his face the whole time.
And I'm also, I don't want to leave out, Jeff Simons also participated with us, and he was chronicling what was taking place through photographs. So I think we'll have some of that captured in the photographs that he took that afternoon.
Right.
It was wonderful. Under construction update, tile in the toilet rooms and locker rooms, as well as ceiling tiles in classrooms, halls, and the administrative offices are under installation. The auditorium ceiling is painted, the rooftop units are set, the mechanical is roughed in, and the potholes on Sherman Road were filled in for the time being. The road will be
Very
repaved.
short time, because I drove there today, and
They're back.
they're back. Yeah.
Well, the road will be repaved in the summer. In terms of the design update, the focus really is on finishes and FF&E at this particular time. And for those that don't know what FF&E is, it's furniture, fixtures, and equipment. Invoices were approved, and at the next meeting, it is intended that there will be a full budget update presentation. Mr. Ed McGrath requested to be included in decisions regarding recycling when the first move phase takes place this spring. So I will be scheduling a meeting with the OPM, the principals, the supervisor of buildings and grounds, and Mr. McGrath to set forth a plan to meet the town's needs. And the next regular meeting of the SSBC is scheduled for Tuesday, March 25th, beginning at 5:30 p.m. in the high school modular cafeteria. That's it.
Do you want to mention, I don't think you've talked about this, that we have made some of the selections of some of the furniture and how exciting that all is?
Oh, very
and
exciting.
was?
The bid has gone out, and what we did was we took a look at comparables. So there were different samples that were sent to the high school and the principals, myself, the design team from the architects, the OPM, as well as the subcontractor Tavares representatives for furniture. We participated in about a 4-hour review of different samples and made some decisions regarding which of those samples we would procure through FF&E. Some of them were similar to what we had requested, some were a little different. But in every case, we took a look at the furniture in terms of what we were looking for, the function and the durability, because we want to be purchasing furniture and equipment that will last a very long time, because a significant investment is being made by the town.
It's really cool looking too. Some of the tables that we picked for the cafeteria, the high school cafeteria, the desks, I thought, they're really not traditional desks the way you think of desks.
No, they're not.
I mean, it's just, that's all gonna add to the environment, I think, when the school's built and that furniture is in there.
What color is the furniture?
All different colors.
Yeah, the table.
Mostly gray.
No, that's not true.
I was just curious.
No, I think that the cafeteria tables were different colors, weren't they? if
They
I
were
recall?
different colors. But you raise a good point about desks not looking like traditional desks. The whole notion of the furniture is for it to be flexible and mobile. Because in this day and age, our education is focused on collaboration and collective problem solving. And so making sure that desks are not nailed to the floor, that they are easy to move, so that we can move students in small groups, in pairs. We can have a Socratic method where, our desks are in a circle and there's lots of conversation going on. And soft furniture is also in place in certain breakout areas so that students are conversing with one another on projects outside of the classroom. And it's also wired for technology so that they can also access the World Wide Web while they're engaged in these conversations. Everything is flexible, mobile, and really preparing our students for work in the 21st century.
Do desks still have the inkwells?
No, in fact, the desks
What's
look like,
ink?
There's no ink.
they're just like little tables basically for each
They
student.
they are. They're smaller mobile tables, large enough for a senior to be comfortable,
Right.
yet light enough and durable enough to be reconfigured many times over the course of the school day.
The other thing that's cool is when we went on the tour, the interactive whiteboards. When you're walking through and you're like, wow, it's almost, as Jerry said, I think we're ready to open
I
in
think after
May.
April vacation, we'd be
Yeah.
ready to go.
I mean, the whiteboards are already in, so all you need is a couple markers, get a teacher in there and some kids.
No markers on the way.
Oh, no markers. on
Those are
whiteboards,
Eno
right.
boards.
Those are Eno boards, right, we don't put markers on.
They have
those.
cardboard covers on them.
Right, they had cardboard covers
You can
on.
mark
Well,
on the
actually,
cardboard.
Right.
I stand corrected. These new Eno boards are interactive as well as
Also, we can use
you
them.
can use them as a whiteboard. That was a
Mhm.
learning curve for me since I ruined a smartboard once. But
Okay, any other questions? for
I
Kathy?
digress.
Okay, great. Next, we have second reading of the policy JQE, which is a policy that addresses pregnant students. I don't know if we have to read it for a second time. There were no changes the first time around, so unless anybody has any questions or comments. Karen?
Since I wasn't here for the first reading, I only have 2 comments.
Okay.
The first is that it's not appropriate to say school-age mothers on line 2. Should say student mothers, or
Oh, yeah, school age, yeah.
school age implies they're not that they're in elementary school or whatever.
could be
but
right,
yeah,
should
I
say
just think
student.
that sounds better.
Student mothers.
In the final paragraph, I think we should add something that says consideration of student mothers who would choose to breastfeed. Breastfeeding is not addressed in this policy.
Hmm.
By law, we need to provide a space
Right.
for any faculty, staff, or students for breastfeeding.
So we already have to do that?
It's required by law.
Right, I'm just saying if it's a law, it should be included in our policy. That's all.
Okay.
I don't have a problem with that. I don't know what the wording would be. I mean, we could change school age to student. I don't know what the wording is for the breastfeeding aspect of it, though.
Mrs. Araketti, is the purpose for raising that making sure that they have access
Yes,
to a space?
ensuring that we are being compliant with the law is the primary driver for my request to add it. Apart from the fact that they should have access to a room for pumping, et cetera.
So how would could we just word, if we had the, what that state law was, we could just refer to that.
It should be a legal reference in this policy. I
Right.
don't know what it is, but I just know that I did this recently in another area, and I had to find it, so I don't know if I could probably find it again. Or I could look it up now.
I don't have a problem with adding that. Does anybody else have a problem with adding that? It makes sense to me. And if we can't do it tonight, we can actually, I mean, this is not, we could wait till the next meeting to,
Bring it back for a
Bring it
second
back for-
reading at
yeah.
the next meeting?
yeah. So if you could locate whatever that section of the law is, and then just make sure that that's added to the last paragraph, then we'll just do it then. So we'll just carry that over.
You could add to fix the last paragraph where we say that health counseling and lactation.
All right.
Something.
And then
so-
cite the law.
Yeah. and
Okay.
There's a
Alright.
way to add it to that paragraph so that we're compliant.
Okay, so we'll carry that over to the next meeting. Kathy, update on the 2014-15 kindergarten program.
Thank you. You may recall at the February 24th, 2014 school committee meeting, I brought forward to you an option to move the half-day kindergarten session from the Hood School to the Batchelder School, and this was for discussion purposes only. So I'd like to update the committee. Since that meeting, I had another meeting with the Hood School Principal McKay, and we actually toured the building to review existing space utilization. And based on those actions and taking a look at some possibilities, we have identified space to keep the half-day kindergarten program at the Hood School for next year. I then met with all of the elementary school principals to develop a plan to provide furniture, supplies, and materials to outfit this particular classroom at the Hood School, and it appears that we'll be able to do so internally. So I would just like to inform you of that decision.
So no moving of
No moving.
students. Great.
Yeah.
Good outcome.
Excellent. Okay. The next item, we're going to actually, well, we did the food service program evaluation. We initially were scheduled to do a review of the policy KGAR, use of buildings and grounds, the fees and regulations, and a lot of this relates to the new school coming online. But at this time, we're going to table this item until the next meeting. We need to do a little more review of the policy as it stands at this point. So that'll be on the next meeting. So now we can move down to routine matters, I believe, and we have minutes for the open session of February 10th. Before we vote on these, though, it said we had an executive session that night, but there are no minutes for it.
Not yet.
Okay, there will, okay, I just want to make sure there were going to be.
Yes.
Okay, so I read through the minutes for the open meeting on February 10th, and I saw no issues with them, so unless anybody else has an issue, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Karen, second by Cliff. Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous? And then we have open session meetings for open session meeting minutes for February 24th. And again, I read through these and I found nothing out of order.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Karen, second by Cliff. Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Budget update, Michael, nothing?
Nothing at this time.
Staffing, Kathy, nothing?
Not at this time?
And no bids and donations tonight?
No.
Subcommittee updates. Okay, so for subcommittee updates, we had athletic subcommittee, Jerry?
Yeah, to the best of my recollection, Ron, you can back me up. We continue each agenda to talk about the new school building project and the related athletic facilities. I think last time we talked again, and I think it's something we're going to have to deal with down the road, but the possibility of the potential of bringing some irrigation up to the new practice field and softball field. It's not necessarily part of the construction project right now, but I think we need to think about that. I think we talked again about the fee structure, did we not, Mel? The proposed
Right.
fees.
Talked about proposed fees, yeah.
And I think, we're in agreement that we did not want to raise the athletic user fees. And we did also talk just briefly, Phil Dardino has been involved with a small committee that he set up to take a look at potential baseball field options around the community, and he's done a lot of work on that. It does impact the high school because we have essentially 2 fields right now for our 3 teams. So Phil's going to report back to the athletic subcommittee when he thinks he has something that he'd like to come back to see us about. What else? I'm not sure what else.
We also talked about other options to try to get more baseball field availability in addition to, nothing was committed to, but there were some ideas about maybe putting lights on a
Right.
field somewhere, or in order to give more, make it
Well, we
available
talked
more
about
in the summer.
potentially putting lights at the high school
Right.
field, and that would give us more options so that you could have a second game on certain nights and things like that. So, again, that's something that Phil's working on. He's
Right.
going to report back to us and see if there are any options that we need to consider.
You should put those on the softball field too at the same time.
That's true.
Well, there'd be enough light coming over from the baseball field.
The light will bleed over. I think that pretty much covers it.
It's not necessary because we have so many softball fields that are available to us, but a lack of baseball fields.
Right. Then the finance planning team, Representative Brad Jones attended basically to tell us to not expect much more in the way of state aid, both for municipal on the municipal side and the school side. He had been pushing with other members a resolution that would have provided higher state aid, but there was an agreement that came out between the Senate and the House leaders that basically keeps state aid at what it is now. I think there may be a little additional on the municipal side. For us, it's the minimal also $25 per student is our increase this year. The remainder of the meeting mainly focused again on building the budgets for next year and on fine-tuning the revenue and expense projections for next fiscal year. I think those are the key issues. Michael, you remember anything else?
No, that covers it.
I think
Yeah,
that
the
covered
focus.
most of it. Also, there's going to be the additional borrowing for the school project is going to happen soon. Yeah, soon, right. I think next month. So that's moving along. Looks like fairly favorable rates, given that interest rates really haven't budged that much since the initial borrowing.
Probably a good time.
Right, good time to borrow. So, but I think that covers it. Subcommittee meetings coming up. Policy subcommittee, looks like Wednesday. Finance planning team is Friday. Athletic subcommittee, April 10th. Evaluation subcommittee, May 16th. Administrative report, Kathy?
Very brief administrative report that was distributed to you this evening. A copy of the minutes for each of the school councils and each of the schools for this school year is attached for your review. No action is necessary. This is just for informational purposes only. Also in your, I don't think I included it in your packet, but MASC sent out, I think, postcards recently to everyone's home. They're going to be sponsoring their Day on the Hill on April 29th from 8:45 a.m. to 2:45 p.m. If a school committee member is interested in attending, please contact Ann Lundell no later than April 18th, and she will register you if you would like. In your packet, I did include a copy of a flyer outlining the agenda of another workshop by MASC on park. And this, during this workshop, the implementation of the new park assessment will be discussed by representatives of 2 school districts. And the workshop will take place on April 17th at 6:30 p.m. in Chelmsford. And finally, I was just inquiring about naming school facilities. We have had a request from an individual to be advised as to what the process should be for naming a room at the high school after a person. So I was wondering if the school committee could provide some guidance around previous naming of either classrooms or facilities in the current schools in the past.
I think Jerry's the only one who's on the committee who is,
Yeah.
when we named something after
My
somebody.
recollection is that I know that we named Kipnis Court after Coach Barry Kipnis probably about 9 or 10 years ago. And that came to us as a proposal from a citizens group that came to the school committee and requested our consideration. And I think we actually, I'm pretty sure, Kathy, we took a vote on that. Now, I also remember going back a long time to the Board of Selectmen and as to whether or not we needed to actually go to town meeting to approve. I'm not sure that we.
There's something roaming way back.
Yeah,
Yeah,
same with me, Cliff.
same with me, Cliff.
So I'm talking from the early 90s.
Yeah, I'm thinking of something like that, too.
That we might need some type of town meeting approval to do that. But as I said, the way it began with Kipnis Court was a group of former players and coaches and people like that came in. And I remember the school committee being in favor of it, making a recommendation. And then there was a ceremony and, I'm just trying to remember whether or not we had to get a vote from town meeting or not.
I'll do a little more research.
But I think
I'm
it's something, if
curious.
people are interested in that, and certainly, I think this, I speak for myself, I'd be open to consideration of people coming in and looking to have something named after them at the school, maybe in exchange for some type of a donation, a contribution, scholarship, or anything like that. It's something that we've talked about for a long time, that certainly the school committee would be open to hearing from those people.
Well, thank you for your help.
I think if we don't have a policy on this, I know we have a sponsorship or advertising or marketing policy, but I don't know if it touches on this.
Those are all short-term.
If we don't have a policy, we should, given the new school building, we should have some policy in place that addresses this issue.
I agree.
Because
I
one
do
of
a little
the
research.
things is, as Jerry said, if someone wants to come in with, scholarship money or et cetera, and wants to request a room, a classroom or whatever be named after a certain person, that's great. But I think we have to have some sort of guidelines
For how to
that
do
we've,
it.
right, so we don't have just kind of a random, group of people coming in and saying, we'd like the cafeteria named after us, or we'd like this.
We had Cary Park recently too.
Oh,
So
right.
we had Cary Park, we had Kipnis Court, and again, I'm just trying to think, I'm pretty sure they came as requests from private organizations or citizens groups.
And just to be clear, Kathy, the current rooms and facilities at the high school that are named after people, but is the plan to carry those names over to the new school in either the same type of room or facility, or something close to it if we don't have the same types of rooms when we go from one school to the other?
Good question. And it's funny, on Wednesday, March 27th, 2013, I have an email here between Mr. Bernard and Mr. Webster and myself, identifying all the areas of the high school that are named in honor of someone, and that it's our collective understanding that the spaces in the new schools will be similarly named.
Okay.
And there's about 10 different spaces
Yeah.
that have been named.
Well,
My
and
recollection is there's a plan to move all the plaques and so forth that we have throughout
Right.
the school on to the new school.
we also do have, though, there are other opportunities. There are 2 auxiliary gyms.
Oh, yeah.
Two new gyms at the school that,
Yeah, the distance
and there are
learning
other
lab.
facilities, the distance learning lab. there's
Science
other-
labs.
Right.
I mean,
So I think that's probably a policy committee, subcommittee task to find out. I'm sure that other districts, if we don't have one, have policies pertaining to
Yes, they do.
naming school facilities or.
Yes, they do. I have a sample in my folder. I
Okay.
started to do a little research, so I know that they're out there. I was just curious.
I don't know how it is now, but I know years ago when I went to church, you had a name in every pew.
Oh, that's
so.
right. They St. Teresa's.
Really?
I believe they still do that.
You don't know how it is now? You go
I
to-
don't know.
Yeah,
They
okay.
still do that or not.
Any other items tonight? Anybody?
I do not have any other items.
Okay. Our next meeting is April 7th, correct?
That's correct.
That will be the budget, public hearing for the budget, and it will be in this room. Initially, we were going to have it at the large group room, but this room is now available. So April 7th here, and then April 14th, are we at the little school?
Yes, Tuesday, April 15th.
Tuesday, April 15th, the little school,
Yes.
that's right, because the 14th is Patriots Day, and then the 28th back here, correct?
We are back here on Monday, April 28th, yes.
Okay. All right, good. Can I have a motion to adjourn, please?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.